Hey Mustangs, in this video we're going to be talking about domain and range. So domain and range talk about possible x and y values that a certain relation or function can have. Specifically, domain represents all of the possible x values. Range represents all of the y values. So a good way to remember this is D comes before R in the alphabet, X comes before Y in the alphabet. So you want D and X to be together and your R and your Y to be together. Now we've talked about two different kinds of functions. We could have a discrete function, which is just a set of points, or we could have a continuous function. When you write domain and range for these, they are different. So let's look at the discrete function first. Since a discrete function is just a set of points, when we actually go to write our domain and range, we will simply be listing out all of the x values and all of the y values. So under discrete, we're going to say list of numbers. That's all you're doing for a discrete data. So I'm going to look over here at my graph. Let's start with the domain. The domain talks about the x values. So x values, I am focusing on what is going on down here along my x-axis. So let's start at the leftmost point because we always want to write everything least to greatest. What is the x value of this point here? If I look down, it is at 10. So we're going to open our domain with curly braces, and then I'm going to write the number 10. And then put a comma. Now I go to my next point. What is the x value of that point? It is 20. So I write 20, and I'm going to keep doing this with all of the points. So my next point has an x value of 30. Then we have a point at 40. Then 50. The next point is at 60, 70, 80, and 90. And then we close it with a curly brace. So this is the domain of this discrete function. Now we're going to do the same thing for the range. So the range talks about the y values. So now I'm concentrating on what is going on up and down. So when I go to each of my points, I'm going to look at what is the y value of that point. I don't care about the x value now, I only care about the y value. So if I start at my bottommost point, my smallest point, that is at a y value of 15. So we open our curly brace, write 15. Then we look at our next point. The next bottom point is 25. Then I've got this point here, which is at 30. Then we have this point here, which is 40. And then the next lowest point is this guy all the way over here, and he's at 50. And then I've got 2 points that are at 55. So I'm going to write 55. I only need to write it once. And then I've got a point here at 60. And finally, my highest point is at 70. So that is the range for this discrete function. Now for a continuous function, we can't just list out a set of numbers because continuous means that the function happens over a range of values. So it could happen between 1 and 2. Well, that includes an infinite number of numbers between 1 and 2. It could be 1, 1.0000001, 1.0000012. I don't want to write all those numbers out. So I have to be able to write it in a different form. And so we actually use inequalities to do this. And we did this back in the previous chapter. So I'm going to show you how to go through and write the domain and range for a continuous function. But please know that we will be practicing this more in class. So if you don't quite get it the first time, it's okay. All right, let's start with the domain. So domain is talking about the x value. So again, I care about what is going on left to right. If I look at my graph, what is the leftmost x value that I have? The leftmost point is right here. So if I draw a line down to that x value, that's an x value of 0. I'm going to do the same thing over on the right side. So here is my rightmost point. If I draw a line down there, that rightmost point is at 8. So my x's are between 0 and 8. So we're going to write that down. I'm going to write x, and then I'm going to physically write it between the numbers 0 and 8. X is between 0 and 8. Since we are always going least to greatest, I'm going to use less than or equal to symbols, and then include my brackets. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the range. So range is what's happening up and down. I don't care what's going on left and right, I just care about what's happening at the bottom and at the top. So if I look at the very bottom of this graph here, there is my very bottom point at the point 80. So I'm going to draw a line across. That y value is y equals 0. Then I'm going to go to the very top of my graph, which occurs right up here at the curve. So again, I'm going to draw my line across, and I see that that hits a y value of 150. So now I'm going to write the same thing over here, that y is between 0 and 150. I physically write the letter y in between the two numbers that I just found over here on my graph. And then we will be using less than or equal to, because we always write least to greatest, and then include our brackets. So this is just an intro to domain and range. Like I said, if you don't quite get it, that's okay. We will be spending several days practicing these skills. Don't forget to fill out the video summary below. Have a great night.